relating to the National Crime Agency, the first of two motions on the Opposition Day 7th allotted day, this Opposition Day being in the ownership of the Democratic Unionist Party. To move the motion, I call Mr. Gregory Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is an extremely important debate, given the context of criminal activity that exists right across the United Kingdom, but particularly in Northern Ireland. In recent months, the police in Northern Ireland have given their assessment as to there being approximately between 140 and 160 criminal gangs operating in Northern Ireland. They have also, the police that is, have also indicated what they would like to see in terms of the utmost cooperation right across the community in dealing with these criminal gangs and their attempt not just to stop and stifle their activities, but to seize any proceeds that they can in terms of their illegal activities. And the police, I'm quoting from a police statement of last year, where they said, and I quote, "It is the police view that if the National Crime Agency is unable to operate fully in Northern Ireland, this will have a detrimental impact on our ability to keep people safe." And they go on to say, "It remains our view that the National Crime Agency should only work in Northern Ireland alongside the police, so that operational control ultimately remains with the Chief Constable and nothing proceeds without agreement. There must be complete transparency for the police of the National Crime Agency's intelligence, investigations and operational activity. Through such arrangements, the Chief Constable can be held accountable for NCA operations via the Policing Board." The reason for my quoting that statement at some length, Mr. Speaker, is that there have been some concerns, in inverted commas, in Northern Ireland about accountability measures and how they would be applicable to the operation of the National Crime Agency. And in fact, the SDLP and Sinn Féin have indicated thus far their lack of preparedness to endorse the National Crime Agency. The Chief Constable has made it clear, in addition to that statement that I've just read from, has had a number of meetings with various political representatives in order to reassure them that whatever accountability measures are needed are currently in place. So he's absolutely clear that they are currently in place. Therefore, one would have hoped, one would have expected that, given the scale of up to 160 criminal gangs operating and what they can do, potentially, not just in Northern Ireland, but here in the rest of the United Kingdom, one would have expected full, total support for the implementation of the National Crime Agency to deal with that.
Would the member give way?
Yes, I will.
I thank the member for giving way, and I appreciate him raising this matter this afternoon in the House. Would he agree that there is also a financial cost to this, not just for Northern Ireland but for the UK more widely, because civil recovery has been affected by the lack of ability for the NCA to operate fully in Northern Ireland?
Yes, indeed. Indeed, that is the case, and while it is a matter of some concern, it's not the primary concern, but it is an additional one to the issue that I'm about to go on to. So I thank her for raising that. Yes, I will.
Thank you. I'm most grateful. Thank you indeed, Mr. Speaker. I'm very grateful indeed. And following on from the point, the very important point raised by the Honourable Lady for East Belfast, could the Honourable Gentleman just identify that in the absence of the wonderful, excellent Assets Recovery Agency that did operate in Northern Ireland, which was eaten up and extinguished, unfortunately, by SOCA, and now when the National Crime Agency doesn't apply to Northern Ireland, what exactly are the powers of assets recovery by any organisation, particularly the PSNI, in Northern Ireland?
Well, I thank the Honourable Lady for her question, and the short answer is extremely limited. Extremely limited, virtually non-existent. And I want to come on to some of the issues that dated back to the time of the SOCA operations, which have now been superseded by the National Crime Agency. Yes, I will.
Could I thank the honourable member for East Londonderry for giving way, and to say that reference has also already been made to my party, the SDLP. Can I say that the SDLP has vigorously opposed any form of criminality at any stage? But by way of clarification, perhaps the honourable gentleman could outline to the House the level and the depth and intensity of accountability that he sees in respect of the Policing Board and the Chief Constable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the relevant response to that is that the Chief Constable, and I understand he has had at least one, if not several, meetings with the SDLP, and he has assured them that in terms of his role and his cooperation with the Policing Board, he has repeated what he said in the statement of May 2013, that nothing proceeds without agreement in connection with the work of the National Crime Agency, and that the Chief Constable is held accountable for NCA operations through the Policing Board. And the Honourable Lady will know that members of her party and of Sinn Féin serve on the Policing Board. Yes, I will.
I thank you for giving way. Does he not find it odd that the member for South Down has raised this issue of accountability for the NCA when her party actually signed up to policing, when SOCA had no degree of accountability through the Policing Board at all, didn't have any objections, and now with SOCA's replacement, apparently this whole issue of accountability has become something important?
Yeah, well, I thank my honourable friend for that, and I understand that discussions between the Chief Constable and the SDLP are continuing. But the point of today's debate is to say, while those discussions continue, there are 140 plus criminal gangs operating through the Republic of Ireland into Northern Ireland and into the UK, smuggling not millions but tens of millions of pounds of illegal drugs, as a result, some of which could be prevented by the full operation of the National Crime Agency. So, yes, I will.
Thank my colleague for giving way. It goes even further, that according to the police today, there has not been one single civil recovery of a crime asset since the NCA took over, because they have not the surge capability. The PSNI do not have the surge capability of doing that. So we're actually losing our ability to make civil recoveries.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for that. And I mean, this is really a damning indictment on those who still hold back from the full support of the implementation of the National Crime Agency. And I note from recent reports that while the meetings between the police and the SDLP are continuing but don't appear to be arriving at a satisfactory conclusion, I note that the response from Sinn Féin is that they have not responded to requests from the Justice Department for a meeting about the issue. So this is the scale of the problem that we are faced with. Yes, I will.
I'm grateful to them for giving way. Would he also reflect on the fact that the second reading of the bill that established the National Crime Agency was almost 2 years ago? We've had a committee stage where this was raised by all members. And does he feel that the government have any duty of care in relation to bringing the parties together with the Justice Minister to discuss and finalise these issues?
You know, I thank my honourable friend for that, and I think they do. They do have a responsibility, because while this delay goes on, while this failure to fully implement the NCA goes on, our young people, various people across not just Northern Ireland, I'm going to come to how far this penetrates in a moment, they are suffering as a result of these criminal operations. And I want to come now to a recent operation. Yes, I will.
Just further to the point that has just been raised by the opposition spokesman on the front bench for the Labour Party, does he share my frustration that often when the government here is asked about these issues or asked to comment, that there seems to be a view that, oh, the parties in Northern Ireland can't get this matter sorted out? I note from the library note that on a number of occasions the Secretary of State has referred to problems within the Northern Ireland Executive. The Northern Ireland Executive can't agree. The fact of the matter is we should put the truth out there, which is that the vast majority of the parties want to make progress except for the two nationalist parties. Right.
Yes, I thank my honourable friend for that. The issue is that virtually every party in Northern Ireland, with the exception of the SDLP and Sinn Féin, are in favour of the full implementation of the National Crime Agency. Yes, I will.
I'm grateful because I agree entirely with the honourable gentleman from the opposition, right honourable gentleman, I think, from the opposition front bench on this. And I also agree with what he's saying. I mean, I happen to think there's some very good people in the SDLP, friends of the SDLP, with whom I may disagree, but generally I think they're decent people. But I thought that they took the Labour Party whip. So does the Labour Party not have a responsibility perhaps to put a little bit of pressure on their friends?
Yeah, well, I look forward to the discussions between the SDLP and the Labour Party resulting in that pressure being applied. But could I thank the honourable member for when he was in office specifically indicating where the problems were in relation to this. And I hope we will have a repeat of that today from the front bench. I want now to turn to the issue of...
The honourable gentleman give way.
Yes, I will, yes.
And could I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way? In my previous intervention, I asked him if he would specify the level of accountability between the NCA and the Policing Board and the Chief Constable. So far, he hasn't dealt with the specificity of that request. Maybe in his further discussion, he will do that.
Well, I thank the honourable lady for that. I'll repeat what I said on the previous occasion, that the Chief Constable and the Policing Board appeared to be totally content with the level of accountability and cooperation that will exist. The onus, I'm afraid, is on those who say there is a lack of accountability after having been reassured that there is not, after having several meetings to indicate that there is no reason nor rationale for continuing to object or oppose to the implementation of the National Crime Agency. There is an onus on those who say that to explain why it is the case. I want, Madam Deputy Speaker, now to turn to a very relevant and important and topical issue which demonstrates the nature of the problem that we are faced with. Last month, a combination of security services of the Irish Republic boarded and detained people on a yacht with up to €80 million worth of illegal cocaine. This was bound in part for the Irish Republic, but informed sources from the Irish Republic indicate that the vast majority of the consignment was aimed for the United Kingdom. Now, of course, as we all know, Northern Ireland has a land border with the United Kingdom. But part of the reason the authorities in the Irish Republic were able to successfully apprehend the haul off their coast in international waters was because of the cooperation of the National Crime Agency. That was why they were successful. As a result of that, I tabled last month a question to the Minister for Justice in the Northern Ireland Assembly and asked him if there were a similar consignment that were to arrive on our shores from off the coast, from the waters of Northern Ireland. And we were endeavouring to get the same level of cooperation to ensure that that didn't reach land off, say, the North Antrim coast or County Londonderry coast. What would, or anywhere, yes, even in South Down, what would the response be? And I will quote his answer. In a situation such as that outlined in the question, I would expect the police to be involved. There may also be a role for the National Crime Agency, the UK Border Agency and HMRC to play. The role of the National Crime Agency would be limited if the operation was in Northern Ireland territorial waters, as drug operations fall into the devolved sphere. So the Justice Minister in Northern Ireland is absolutely clear. If we have another consignment like the one I've just alluded to, and that wasn't the largest one, Madam Deputy Speaker, but if we have another consignment that comes close to our coast, the National Crime Agency will have severe limitations in helping to deal with that haul.
Will my honourable friend give way?
Yes, I'll give way first of all to my honourable colleague.
Thank my honourable friend for giving way. Isn't it the case that this is not just a matter of having an effective response to organised crime, but if drugs of this nature do land in Northern Ireland, it is the young lives that are being destroyed by the paramilitary organisations that continue to act as organised gangs, and including in the constituency of the honourable member for South Down.
I thank my right honourable friend for that, and this is the point I wish to come on to. The consequences of the failure to implement the National Crime Agency are catastrophic. I'll give way.
I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way again. He's been very generous with his time. There are a number of significant PSNI investigations at the minute where the key and pertinent criminal associates, their infrastructure and the organisation are actually based outside Northern Ireland. The NCA are much better placed to take a lead on those sorts of issues, but currently can't because obviously they have the international reach. Would you agree with me that that just not only compromises investigation in that it limits the role of the NCA, but actually it also stretches the resources of the PSNI at a time when those resources are already heavily stretched?
I thank my honourable friend for that, and that is very, very true. And only this past 2 weeks, the Chief Constable has been indicating the scale of the reductions in normal policing in Northern Ireland as a result of the budgetary changes that he has had to implement. And therefore, this is going to compound the issue further. Some 6 years ago, Madam Deputy Speaker, there was a further consignment that arrived, again via the Irish Republic. That consignment totalled €700 million worth of cocaine. €700 million worth of cocaine. That predated, of course, the National Crime Agency, but was at a time when SOCA was in operation. The reason I am alluding to these drugs operations, Madam Deputy Speaker, is for the reason that the Honourable Lady has alluded to. These drugs are doing untold harm, not just to people in Northern Ireland, but to the entire United Kingdom. The Republic of Ireland market would not have had even a toehold in €700 million worth of cocaine. And indeed, the report at the time of the 7th of November, when the haul was located, said the vast bulk of the cocaine was bound for the United Kingdom market. So this is a problem that doesn't just apply to a small part of this United Kingdom. This is a problem that is going to be felt in every constituency across this United Kingdom. On the streets of our cities, young people are going to be sold dope, illegal substances, some of which have come from the shores of the Irish Republic, through Northern Ireland and then into the GB market. So there is an onus on all of those, the SDLP particularly, and Sinn Féin, to sign up to the implementation of the National Crime Agency. But I would have to say this, Madam Deputy Speaker. Sinn Féin may well have associates who are benefiting from the failure to implement the National Crime Agency. I fully accept the Honourable Member for South Down indicating that the SDLP have no such hang-up and have no such associates. All the more reason to sign up to the agency that will help stop it.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. and you just alluded to something that's stirred me clearly. How many of the 160 gangs that are operating across the border into Northern Ireland would you estimate are actually linked to paramilitary organisations?
I thank my honourable friend for that, and that is a very, very pertinent question. When that question has been put to the police, their response generally has been very many of them are. I haven't seen any figures that indicate exactly how many they believe are, but many of them are, because many of those paramilitary groups, of course, have stopped their so-called politically inspired campaign and have now moved on to money laundering, to illegal fuel, and to, of course, the smuggling of drugs. Yes, I'll give way.
And would the honourable member add to that list the misery of human trafficking? Absolutely. As he is aware, the Assembly passed a bill putting Northern Ireland out ahead in front of the rest of the United Kingdom in tackling human trafficking. But we have a back door through which this human misery, this crime is being perpetrated, and we really do need all the parties to sign up to closing that back door.
I thank my right honourable friend for that, and he is absolutely right to say that. Just this week, the Assembly has made further progress in the implementation of that legislation. And again, here is an issue that the National Crime Agency can help us with. Yes? Yeah.
Further to the point that the honourable gentleman asked across the way in relation to criminal gangs, would it not be fair to say that every criminal gang in Northern Ireland couldn't operate without the say-so of the paramilitaries from either side of the community?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for that. It would be extremely difficult for an efficient, organised criminal gang to operate in any part of Northern Ireland without at least the tacit support and acknowledgement and say-so of paramilitary groups on either side. So whether there is a specific connection or simply an endorsement or an allowance of them to continue, that is certainly the case. Yes,
I'd like to thank my honourable friend for giving way. Bear in mind the seriousness of the issue that we're dealing with and the serious implication for all our constituencies within Northern Ireland. Is it not significant that the Honourable Lady for South Down has been left on her own, and yet the Honourable Member for Foyle, who is always here, is absent, and the leader of the party of the Honourable Lady is also absent? Is that not giving a message in itself?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for that. I look forward to the full and total participation of all the members of the SDLP, and hopefully they will appear before the conclusion of our deliberations. I want, in conclusion, Deputy Speaker, to move on to the issue of the paramilitary groups. Many of them, and many of their members particularly, while they were engaged for almost 30 years in the brutality of murder and mayhem and destruction, have now moved on to issues that are more to do with finance and how they glean their illegal and ill-gotten gains from various darker sides of society. And those people the police are reasonably sure where they operate, how they operate, and they are also fairly confident that they can inhibit their activities. But they can only do so whenever they are getting not just the full support of the entire community, and I believe and I'm confident that that is the case, but when they have all of the resources, all of the manpower and womanpower available to tackle such activity. And a central part of that will be the National Crime Agency, its knowledge, its expertise, its information in terms of the international community and international policing figures that are available to them, because of the two examples that I alluded to, which are but the tip of the iceberg. Because remember, whether it's 60 million last month or 700 million 6 years ago, these were just two operations that were apprehended. There are many more that the police believe are ongoing and have got through the net. The net needs to be tightened. The organisation that can help tighten the net is the National Crime Agency. Hopefully today, Madam Deputy Speaker, we will send a message to peace-loving people, to law-abiding people in Northern Ireland and across the UK, that net is tightening. And more importantly, we're going to send a message to those drug dealers, those human traffickers, those who break the law, those who depend on loopholes, those who depend on political parties that should know better in allowing them to drive a coach and horses through loopholes. We will send a message to those criminal gangs that their days are numbered. Thank you.
The question is as on the order paper.